In the decade after the Second World War, America believed that the atom would not only end wars but reshape the Earth itself. From the same furnaces that had birthed destruction, scientists thought they could summon creation. They called it Project Plowshare, a name drawn from the book of Isaiah. They shall beat their swords into plowshares.
The idea was seductively simple. If nuclear explosions could carve mountains and vaporize cities, why couldn't they also dig harbors, cut canals, and unlock buried treasure beneath the crust of the Earth? The Atomic Energy Commission, drunk with post-war confidence, believed the atom could be tamed, industrialized, and made routine, like a bulldozer, only 1,000,000 times more powerful. Dr. Edward Teller, the so-called father of the hydrogen bomb, became one of its most fervent advocates. He told Congress, "If we can use nuclear explosives for peace, we will have truly conquered the atom." The Atomic Energy Commission assigned much of the research to Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, where teams of scientists designed small nuclear devices for civilian use. They believed that these explosions could move mountains, literally. The project received its official birth certificate in 1957. The government poured millions into what it called peaceful nuclear explosions. The first test of Plowshare came in the winter of 1961 under the New Mexico desert, codenamed Project Gnome. It was carried out on December 10, 1961, 25 miles southeast of Carlsbad. A 3.1 kiloton nuclear device was buried 1,200 feet underground in a salt formation. The goals were ambitious: to study underground heat, generate steam for energy, and see if the blast could produce rare isotopes for industry. When the device detonated, the desert surface rippled like water. A fiery plume of vapor erupted through cracks in the ground, an event the engineers hadn't fully anticipated. AEC's official report, published in 1962, noted calmly, "The detonation vented through the shaft. Radiological release was greater than predicted, but within safety limits." Privately, Livermore scientists admitted the venting had released thousands of curies of radioactive gases into the air. The results were scientifically useful but politically fragile. Despite the accident, Gnome was declared a technical success. The path was cleared for bigger experiments. In 1958, even before Gnome, Plowshare planners had conceived their boldest idea, Project Chariot. They proposed to blast a new harbor out of Alaska's frozen coast, near Cape Thompson, using a chain of 5 hydrogen bombs totaling more than 2.5 megatons. Dr. Edward Teller personally promoted it, telling Alaskan officials, "We can make nature do the work of 100 years in 1 second." But local scientists and indigenous leaders saw it differently. The Inupiat Eskimos who lived there depended on the tundra and its wildlife for survival. Radiation, they feared, would poison their home. Professor William O. Pruitt of the University of Alaska wrote, "The tundra is a delicate fabric. To tear it with atomic fire would be to destroy the pattern of life that has endured for centuries." Protests followed, joined by environmentalists and local villagers. By 1962, amid public outcry and logistical doubts, Project Chariot was canceled. It was the first major victory of citizen resistance against atomic experimentation. If Gnome had been a whisper, Sedan was a shout. The Sedan test, part of Operation Storax, took place at the Nevada test site on July 6, 1962. A 104 kiloton thermonuclear device was buried 635 feet underground in Area 10. At detonation, the explosion displaced more than 11 million tons of Earth, launching a cloud that reached 12,000 feet into the sky. The resulting crater, vast, symmetrical, eerily perfect, became an icon of American engineering power. But the price was devastating. The blast vented 880,000 curies of radioactive iodine and cesium, contaminating the surrounding desert. The U.S. Public Health Service later estimated that Sedan was responsible for roughly 7% of all radioactive fallout from U.S. testing. People in Iowa, Nebraska, and South Dakota recorded measurable radiation levels days later. The AEC, when pressed, issued a statement claiming, "The Sedan event represents a successful demonstration of large-scale excavation potential." They did not mention the fallout cloud that drifted over American farmland. Sedan became a tourist attraction years later, a vast bowl of silence in the Nevada sand, a scar worshipped as proof of progress, even as it glowed faintly with the residue of error. After Sedan, the AEC shifted its focus from excavation to energy. The United States was rich in natural gas, but much of it lay trapped in dense sandstone too tight to drill. If a nuclear blast could fracture that rock, it could release untold energy reserves, a concept that sounded revolutionary. On December 10, 1967, in the San Juan Basin of New Mexico, Plowshare launched Project Gas Buggy. A 29-kiloton device was buried nearly 4,000 feet below ground, inside a gas well. The explosion worked perfectly. The rock fractured, gas flowed, and pressure increased. But the first samples that surfaced carried radioactive isotopes of krypton, xenon, and tritium. The gas was useless. It couldn't be sold, couldn't be burned, couldn't be cleaned. 2 follow-up projects were ordered nonetheless. Project Rulison on September 10, 1969, in Colorado, and Project Rio Blanco on May 17, 1973, using 3 nuclear devices stacked underground. Each time, the gas production improved, and each time it was hopelessly contaminated. The Environmental Protection Agency report of 1974 summarized dryly, "Commercial use of gas produced by nuclear stimulation remains infeasible due to residual radioactivity." That was bureaucratic language for failure. By the early 1970s, the political winds had shifted. The Partial Test Ban Treaty of 1963 had already outlawed atmospheric nuclear explosions, forcing Plowshare to go deeper underground and deeper into secrecy. Public sentiment was turning against anything nuclear. The Vietnam War, rising environmental activism, and the birth of the Environmental Protection Agency in 1970 placed the AEC under scrutiny. At congressional hearings in 1972, critics asked bluntly, "How can a project meant for peace justify leaving radioactive scars on American soil?" Even within the Atomic Energy Commission, enthusiasm waned. Budgets were slashed. Proposed projects were shelved. By 1975, the last Plowshare experiments had been quietly terminated. The total cost of the program exceeded $770 million, over $5 billion in today's money, and not a single commercial application emerged. The AEC's final internal report, written in 1975, admitted, "Economic, political, and environmental considerations preclude the near-term feasibility of peaceful nuclear excavation." That was the bureaucratic epitaph of a 2-decade dream. When Plowshare ended, it left behind not only craters and contaminated wells, but a bitter moral residue. Residents of Nevada and Utah, long called downwinders, began reporting unusually high cancer rates. Government records later confirmed that many Plowshare detonations had released radioactive clouds over inhabited regions, though exposure data were incomplete. A 1997 National Cancer Institute report estimated that fallout from U.S. tests, including Sedan, had exposed nearly every American born after 1951 to small doses of radioactive iodine. The consequences are still debated, but for many families the effects were personal, not theoretical. The promised peaceful atom had reached their homes through the milk they drank and the air they breathed. Today, the physical remains of Project Plowshare still exist. At the Sedan crater, tourists peer from a viewing deck at the pale scar in the desert floor, half a mile wide, ringed with sagebrush that refuses to grow. At Gas Buggy and Rillison, metal signs from the Department of Energy warn, "Caution, subsurface radioactive material, do not drill." The sites are stable, monitored, and in time fading, but their message endures. Plowshare was not born from malice. It came from genuine optimism, the belief that humanity could command the same power that split the stars and use it to build, not destroy. Yet the project revealed something profound. that technology without foresight is merely power in disguise. As physicist Freeman Dyson, who once worked on early nuclear projects, later wrote, "The tragedy of science in the atomic age is not that we asked what we could do, but that we never asked whether we should." Where ancient builders raised cathedrals and carved canals with patience and labor, Plowshare sought to replace time with terror. The same radiance that illuminated the age of destruction was now to be sold as a tool for creation. The idea was not limited to America. Inspired by Plowshare, the Soviet Union launched its own program, Nuclear Explosions for the National Economy, conducting over 120 peaceful detonations between 1965 and 1988. They, too, created craters, underground caverns, and contaminated landscapes. By the 1990s, both nations had agreed under the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty to renounce all such experiments, military or peaceful. In the end, the same dream that had begun with Scripture ended with law and silence. Project Plowshare remains one of the strangest paradoxes of the 20th century. It was a program of peace that used the tools of war. As the dust of Sedan settled in 1962, carried by winds across half a continent, the world witnessed a truth older than the atom itself. That power without conscience is only destruction waiting for a name.